Welcome to week 3 of Chasing Greatness. I'm so fired up for today's episode. Last week we talked about the way great people think, and I didn't mention this last week, but we've just dropped a course just a few weeks ago called 21 Days to Your Best Year Ever. We should relabel that 21 Days to Greatness, because I'm convinced this course really lays a foundation for what it means to have a great life. There's greatness in you. It's waiting to be unleashed. If you don't have a process or a way to think through how you're going to have clarity all the time, you're going to increase your capacity and ultimately build a legacy that you're born to build. I want to encourage you to get that course if you've not done it. You can join all the people that have been doing this. It's been great. We're getting all kind of great feedback and some cool stuff going on there. So that course, 21 Days to Your Best Year Ever, that's a great way to approach what it is you're trying to do so you can be great right there where you are. We've been talking about chasing greatness the last couple of weeks. The first week we talked about defining greatness, what it means to be great, and we said the person who is in charge is not necessarily great, or the person who has the power is not necessarily great. Sometimes they are great if they use that correctly, but it really is about our motive. It's what we're trying to do. Do we understand that being great really is about making other people great? It's how we think, it's how we lead, it's some of those kind of things. Last week, our episode was all on thinking and how great people think. If you've not listened to that, I want to encourage you to go back and check out that episode, and you might even share that with someone that you're trying to invest in. Today, we're talking about how great people speak, and I think there's something about great people. When you get around them, it's their words carry more weight. They always seem to know what to say, how to say it, some of those kind of things. So I'm going to dive in today a little bit to how great people speak. And I spent some time since our last episode thinking about, going back to what we talked about last week, spend some time thinking about how great people speak. And I came up with 7 things that I think are relevant. And I think there'll be good reminders. I don't really hear anybody talking about these things lately. And so I thought they were important for us to discuss here today. And so I'm going to spend some time talking. And you're going to have a chance to hear from my daughter, Katherine, who was on one of our episodes, 3 or 4 months ago. And she had some great stuff to share and a lot of great feedback on that. And she's got 2 little things today that I think will help us frame this conversation. Katherine is a teacher in the school system up in Chicago. And she's going to have a chance to share one of the things that we can do to speak life into others. And then I think as a parent today, she's got something that she'll share. She's not a parent, but she's been parented by us. And I think there's some things that we did that were kind of messed up, that were that might have been even a barrier that as far as her being able to hear things. And so I think she's going to have something to share that'll help those of you who are parents. It'll help you be able to communicate not just what you need to communicate, but how you communicate. You'll gain something from that. So this is going to be a great episode. We're going to dive in here on what it means to speak like a person who is chasing greatness. So let's dive in here. The first thing I've noticed when I am around great people is it seems like they think before they speak. Go back to what we talked about last week. They think, but they think before they speak. If we go down that road here. And so there's just a couple of these little, I'll call them almost like prerequisites to speaking correctly. The first one is to think before you speak. I've heard before, some people react and some people respond. I think people who are great seem to have this responsive mindset, and they think before they speak. So let's see if we can activate that in your life this week. You're going to be up against a situation, your husband or wife or one of your kids or maybe a coworker, somebody who reports to you at work. They're going to say something. They're going to bring up a situation. Maybe a problem's going to arise, and or it's going to be surfaced, and you're going to be tempted to go ahead and speak, to give an answer on the spot. And you probably know what you should do. You know what you've always done. You know what your history says, but is it possible you'll hear something this week, and rather than reacting on the spot, it would be wise for you to take it back into your think tank. Remember last week? Go back, bring that issue to your legal pad, take 30 minutes, sit down, write it out, and say, what do I need to do to respond correctly, or how do I need to think about this. And what does my response need to be? How do I need to when I do speak, how do I need to communicate back to my organization or back to my family or back to my spouse? What is it that I need to do? And I'm just convinced that if you will give some thought to this situation, whatever it is, you actually will probably have a better response. You'll have a better way to communicate back if you will think before you speak. Great people think before they speak. Here's a second thing great people do. They listen before they speak. They listen before they speak. So many times it's tempting, especially for me as a communicator, I'm speaking all the time. It is tempting for me to just begin talking rather than to start by listening. I want to encourage you, no matter if you're a speaker or not, I want to encourage you to listen before you speak, to make sure that you not just listen, but you hear what other people have to say. And I think you will respond better if you will listen, especially as a parent. You know, I told you we'll share some stuff about parenting here in a few minutes. As a parent, though, it's really important that you don't just do all the talking. You want to make sure that you listen to your children. You let them speak. You let them be heard. And one of the most dignifying things you can do to your child, or one of the ways you can add the most value, is to get down on their level. And what I mean by that is not if they're in the 8th grade to act like an 8th grader, but if they're a 4-year-old, to kneel down in front of them and get on an eye level with them, to listen to them. Or if they are in 8th grade, maybe if they're standing, you might just sit. You might just lower your posture. Sometimes just the way we posture ourselves before someone can really be a powerful way to communicate that we're listening to them, to look them in the eye, to really just try to hear what they're saying, and not just listen, but to hear them, to really connect with them, not just be a communication, but a connection going on there. So great people, they do this, and they think before they speak, but they listen before they speak. This works at home with your kids. It works with your spouse. It works with your team at work. I would encourage you to make sure that you are listening to people before you speak. Make sure you do that. So those are a couple of things. Think before we speak, listen before we speak, but then it's time to speak. So what do we say and how do we say it? So I got some things here. I think these 4 or 5 things that I think will help us think about this. Katherine's going to jump in just a moment, but let's think about, but when we do speak, let's think about what it means to speak correctly and how we speak. So the first one is great people always speak courage into others. They speak courage into others, or let's think about that word, courage, into. It's literally they encourage people. They are constantly encouraging people. When I think about my company, we have a company where we coach and train leaders and all kind of organizations. It's so much fun. We get to work with world-class people. It's just a blast. On the website, I am listed as the CEO of the company. I own the company. It's great. But when I look at that CEO, I have labeled myself the Chief Encouragement Officer. I want to be the person who is speaking courage into other people. I want to make sure that in our business, in our company, we are speaking life into others. And when we get around those leaders in those organizations, I want people to feel brave. I want them to feel courageous. I want them to feel like they are able to go after what it is in front of them. I want them to be able to literally, when I say chase greatness, I want them to raise the bar. And I want them to feel like they can maximize their opportunity. And so when you think about your life and what you're saying, your leadership, are you speaking courage into other people? Do they feel brave after you talk? Do they feel like they can? Do they feel like there's possibility? Do they feel like there's hope? Or do they feel squashed? Do they feel like, I don't know? Or do they feel demotivated? They should feel motivated. If you're the leader, your voice is the loudest voice. I want to make sure that you're not just speaking loud. That's not what I'm saying, as I talked about a couple of weeks ago. I want to make sure that my voice is, I understand that it does carry weight. And when I speak, I am bringing life into the organization, not just life. I am making people feel courageous, like they can do something. In fact, I would say this to you today. I hope you'll walk away from this with courage. There really is greatness in you. You have it there. I hope you feel motivated to go and to be better this week after having listened today. You can do this. And so I want you, as you speak this week, to identify some people who need some courage. And your job as a leader, your gift as a leader, honestly, your words have that much weight where when you speak, it just brings people to another level. Think about your own life. There have been people, and there are people right now, if they say thank you to you, or if they encourage you, if they speak courage into you, it just would lift you up. In fact, some of you, if your boss or your spouse or your whoever it is that's important to you, they said something to you that was really positive, isn't it crazy how those things can carry us for weeks? I mean, we don't even have to hear it every day if we just hear it occasionally. Now, for some of you, I know you're in a situation where things are hard right now. Maybe your spouse is not encouraging you very much. Maybe your boss hadn't said anything positive in a while. And truthfully, we as leaders, we've got to lead ourselves first. We need to make sure that we're speaking life into ourselves. Maybe we're finding that life in outside sources like this or whatever. But I want to make sure that you understand that you have what's in you to be great, whether somebody's saying it or not. So just remind yourself today, you might want to, I heard somebody say it this way, you might want to talk to yourself more than you listen to yourself. And I think sometimes we listen to ourselves, we start building a case against our spouse or our boss or somebody who doesn't seem to see us correctly. Some of us need today to talk to ourselves and remind ourselves that whether anybody says it or not, we really are great. We really have been created and put here for a reason. And so I want to just remind you that when you speak courage into others. Make sure when they leave your presence, they feel brave because you said something. So that's one thing. Here's a second thing. When we speak, I want us to make sure that we understand that great people always tell the truth. Great people tell the truth. Now, I know what you may be thinking here as we begin this little segment is telling the truth is like I need to hold people accountable and I need to tell them what they need to do. And those things are great and they're important. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But when I say tell the truth, let me start with where you may not think we would start. Let me start by saying I want to make sure that when I lead, that I am vulnerable when I begin. I am willing to admit that I am not perfect. I have so far to go. I have so far that I need to grow, so much room to grow. The best leaders, the best people, the people who I would label as great, they really have this humility about them. They are vulnerable and they are willing, when things don't go right, they're willing to admit mistakes. I think there's power in being able to admit when we don't do things correctly, when we've got a gap in our leadership, we've got a gap in our life. We're able to admit to the people around us that we see that. And when we are vulnerable, when we tell them the truth, we don't pretend that we're something that we're not. We don't fake integrity. There's no integrity if we pretend to be one thing and we are something else. So I think this idea of telling the truth is powerful. When we're vulnerable, we admit our mistakes. We also we're quick to share credit if we tell the truth. When we really think about the way things are. I mean, I think about this podcast even. This wouldn't happen if it weren't for some other people that are helping me, people who understand things that I don't understand. And so the truth is, the credit for this is I'm the person that you see or hear, but it wouldn't happen if it weren't for somebody else. So that idea of sharing credit, there's projects in your business, there are things maybe in something that you own, and they're going really well. I think about our business and all the impact we're making on these companies that we work with and leaders that we coach. Those things wouldn't happen if it weren't for the coaches that I have on my team. And so on our team, I would say it that way. I just want to make sure you remind yourself that before you speak and when you speak, that you are quick to share credit when things are going really well. Not so well, you take responsibility, you admit the mistakes. When things are going well, you share the credit. And you'll be a leader that people want to follow if you tell the truth in that way. I think another way we tell the truth in the way we speak is when we seek feedback. I mean, it's like, is that telling the truth? I think we admit to people when we go to them and we seek feedback, we receive feedback, that we're willing to not just be a truth teller, but a truth receiver. And so to tell the truth to myself, to admit where I am, that I have places to grow, and the people around me really are the ones who can coach me and help me, and we can all together get better. I think that's really important. So this idea of telling the truth is not just being willing to say, what's going on to someone else. Sometimes it's being willing to say to someone else, here's what's going on with me. Here's where I'm not where I need to be. Here's where I need you to help me. Here's where you have been helping me. Those kind of things, those are all part of telling the truth. But sometimes we do have to tell the truth to others in a way that is going to be hard for them to hear. And yet we can't, as leaders, we can't neglect to share with people when things are not where they need to be, when expectations aren't being met. We need to give people the gift of feedback as well. And I think when we frame up feedback as a gift and not some punitive, you're in trouble or I'm in trouble kind of thing, feedback really is a gift for us to all get better. I think that's a powerful thing. And so we need to be willing to tell people the truth. And sometimes we have to say something that's really hard. And so I want to shift into our next little idea. We want to speak courage into others and tell them the truth. But sometimes we have to say hard things. And great people say hard things in a loving way. They say hard things in a loving way. I think it's important for us to say the right thing, the truthful thing, but to say it in the right way. And if we're not careful, we'll say the right thing, but in the wrong way, and we won't be heard. And so there's several ways that we can talk to people. I would say this: if we're not careful, we can think that saying it louder is going to make it easier to hear. That's not always the truth. And in fact, usually saying it louder doesn't communicate anything that we're trying to communicate. And sometimes saying it louder actually devalues the other person, and it makes them not want to hear us. Another thing I would say is when we think about the way we say it, is sometimes we think if we use profanity, that's going to make it be heard. I mean, we just scream at somebody or we curse them. And I would say this: if you have to curse people to be heard, it probably says more about you than it does about them. I think we have broken communication when we feel like we have to curse people to be heard, or when we have to say it really loud to be heard. And so I don't think intensity necessarily makes us heard more. All those kind of things. Or sometimes we say things and we say it in an abrasive way. I heard a guy say one time, we're never persuasive when we're abrasive. I love that thought, that quote, especially as a father. I want to kind of go down this parenting road here for a second and think about if you have kids, or maybe you just have people that are maybe younger in your life that you're around. Maybe you're a teacher, or maybe you're a coach. You have these people that are impressionable around you, and even if you're a leader, you're a director or a manager of a department, or maybe you're the owner of a business, your words do carry the most weight in that role. If you are a mom or a dad, your words carry the most weight. Your words weigh the most. Your voice is the loudest voice. The leader's voice is always the loudest voice. And I'm not talking about volume here. I'm talking about the weightiness of your voice. I heard somebody say a few weeks ago that a father's voice weighs 1,000 pounds. A mom's voice weighs, I think he said 100 pounds or 500 pounds. A father's voice weighs 1,000 pounds. It wasn't a sexist comment. It wasn't that moms' voices don't mean the most or aren't equally weighted as far as the importance of their voice, but it's really what it was an indictment of so many men don't really understand how their words communicate this tone, this harshness, that moms just seem to know how to say things better. Not every mom, there are some messed up moms, but when I think about it, man, I didn't think about my own life. My mom, her words, they're always positive words. My dad's words, even if they were positive, it felt like, am I measuring up? Are they enough? And maybe that says more about me. Maybe I'm just whacked out, but you may be able to relate to that. Some of us, your dad's words weighed a lot. Well, it's really not what this is about. It's about your words. When you think about your words, there are people in your life, your words weigh 1,000 pounds to them. Their friends, their co-workers, somebody else. Those words, they're important, but they don't mean what your words mean. And so you have some people around your life that you have a chance to say maybe even sometimes hard things, but you got to say them in a loving way. If you don't, you can actually cause a barrier. You can say the right thing in the wrong way, and it can cause a barrier. So I'm going to bring Katherine into the conversation here. She's got some thoughts on what it means to be parented, and so I think it'd be great for us to hear from her. So check out what Katherine's got to say on this topic.
As a parent or a teacher, I feel like it's so easy sometimes to just think that you're saying the right thing all the time, and sometimes you are saying the right thing, but it's so easy to say them in the wrong way, and that actually affects children significantly. Kids, I just think back to when I was a kid. That's my best experience that I can think of, and when I was a kid, my mom would always say, "Katherine, go clean your room," and I would go up and I would clean it, and at age 10, in this example, my mom would always come up and say, "Katherine, how on earth do you think that this is clean?" And I would look back just completely baffled. I think the same thing happened to some of my sisters too, but my mom's expectation of clean was vastly different than my 10-year-old perception of what clean was for a bedroom. And so I think one big thing to remember when you're talking to kids is clarity. They cannot read your mind, and they have no desire to. And so it's very easy with kids to forget to say our expectations, but the clearer you are, the better they actually understand. Kids love direction, even if it seems like they don't. It's clear for them. They like clarity. Another thing to remember is that kids don't always know what sarcasm is, especially the younger they are. It doesn't register. And I think a lot of times, especially as adults, we say easy phrases or motifs or whatever it may be that we think are easy for them to understand, but a lot of times kids might not actually know what you're saying, or they don't always understand tone. So sometimes even volume could be misperceived, and you might be saying the right thing, but they're hearing it the wrong way. So I would say speaking in love is a really important thing with kiddos, to make sure that when you're saying the right thing, it's not heard the wrong way. And I guess my last thing would be listening to kids is so important. We forget that they're still human, even though they're younger, and they still have a lot to offer. And so I think a lot of times, I know I do this. As an adult today, I love to listen to my students, or I think it's easy to listen to kids and think that we know exactly what we're going to say and what the right answer will be when they're finished speaking. And so we listen to respond quickly, and we respond quickly, but we weren't actually listening to what the kid said. And so it's easy to paint ourselves as an adult who knows the answer, but remember that a child is still a human. They still have good opinions. They still have feelings. And so you need to actually respond with what's real. I have to remind myself all the time with my fifth grade students, the real thing is the right thing. Responding the easy answer that doesn't take a lot of explanation or detail isn't actually that beneficial. Giving them the real answer, the real details of why that's the real answer is much more beneficial for them. So speaking truth. I hope that is helpful. Speak this week to your kids or students or whoever it may be that's younger, or any other human. Speak in clarity, make it clear, speak in love, and speak truth.
Okay, that's great stuff there. Oh my goodness, don't I wish I could have a mulligan on some of the things that, as a parent, maybe my heart was right, but my words weren't always like they needed to be. And so I got to own that. And I'm just telling you, if you as a mom or dad, or even as a boss, whatever your situation is, if you will understand how weighty your words are, you have an opportunity, even sometimes to say hard things, to tell the truth, hard truths sometimes, to give people the last 10% of the conversation. Sometimes you need to do that. But if you'll do it in a loving way, it'll be so much easier for them to hear that. There's an old proverb that says, a gentle answer turns away wrath. I think it's just a good mindset for us to be able to speak with that gentleness, that kindness. Again, maybe that posture, we lower the tone, we make sure that we really are looking at people and seeing them and asking, what's it like to hear what I'm saying right now? So there's some things there that we can coach ourselves on. I encourage you to do that. Sometimes you do need to tell the truth, and sometimes you got to say hard things, but make sure we say them in a loving way. Here's another thing. When we think about speaking and the way great people speak, as I was thinking about this, what do? They speak up. They actually speak up. They speak. When it's time to speak, they do speak. They show up. They speak up. It's the old, if they see something, they say something. They don't let things go undone. Sometimes that can be relationally. Sometimes that can be an area where we're trying to execute in the business. Sometimes that can be something that we see someone treating someone that they shouldn't treat them that way. We even see this with, Catherine's teaching these fifth graders. We see sometimes that a a person is bullied by one person, and then here comes this third person that's not even involved, that sees something and they say something, they speak up and they make sure that's not going to fly. And that person, I'm telling you, that person that speaks up when they see injustice, when they see someone being mistreated, we have all kind of opportunities right now. It's not enough to say I'm not this way. We got to speak up, and we got to talk about that. And so we'll have some stuff on that later. But I'm just telling you, if you see something, you say something, you use your voice. If you are a person who's chasing greatness, you make sure that your voice is heard. If it's going to be the loudest voice, it needs to be heard. And so let's make sure that we speak up when we have these opportunities. So I'm going to review my list. I got one more for you. I'm going to review the list. So we think before we speak. We listen before we speak courage into others, we tell the truth, we say hard things in a loving way, and then we speak up, we communicate. Again, it's not always, when we say speak up, it's not always that we see something, say something. It's just that we're willing to communicate. I mean, communication really is the oxygen of your organization. It's the oxygen of your marriage, your relationships. You got to speak up. You got to make sure that you have those conversations. You check on people. You communicate with them. You over-communicate with them. You over-communicate after you've over-communicated. You say it over and over, and you make sure that everybody's on the same page. And so speaking up is one of those things that we do when we're chasing greatness. And then finally, if we're really chasing greatness, we speak greatness into others. We speak greatness into others. When I was a kid, there was the old I don't know if it was a nursery rhyme or a children's story or whatever. I probably should look this up. But you heard this when you were a kid as well. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Whoever came up with that was I mean, they were whacked out. That is just a crock. I mean, sticks and stones, they really will break your bones, but words will never hurt me. That's a crock. Words do hurt. Words are able to actually kill. Some of us, we don't have life right now because of the way people have spoken to us, or the things they have said about us, or the way we've been labeled, or maybe even the way we've talked to ourselves. We've not talked to ourselves the right way. We've listened to ourselves. That narrative that someone else said, we've built a case against ourselves, and we walk through life with this heavy weight of emotional just almost we're oppressed by the words that we've heard. And so I want to remind you today that if you really want to be great, maybe you need to deal with some of that stuff that you've been carrying and get rid of that. But I want to remind you that you have the power with your words to speak greatness into other people. There's an old proverb that says this: words kill, words give life. They're either poison or fruit. You choose. I love that proverb. Words kill. They really can kill. They're sticks and stones. Yeah, they'll hurt you, but words will kill you as well. But words also could give life. They don't have to kill. They actually can give life. They can breathe life. They can be poison or they're fruit. There's nothing worse than poison. That'll kill you for sure. I mean, see the parallel there. But fruit, man, that's great. I mean, I love fruit. It's awesome. And when I think about our words, they can be pleasing. What is fruit? It's sweet. Our words can be sweet to the soul, to the emotion, to the life of another person. And so we have an opportunity with our words to speak greatness into others. One of the people that I admire the most is my daughter, Katherine, who is, I mentioned earlier, a fifth grade teacher. You heard from her a moment ago. She was parented, but now she's not a parent now, but she's a de facto opportunity to be, she's an adult now. We'll call her that, since she has her own classroom. And she has a chance every day to live out this proverb. She can speak life into the kids, or she can kill them with her words. And so I want her to share with us here how important it is for us to use our words to build up not just the next generation, but all the people around our lives, to speak life in them. Listen to what Katherine has to say about this.
When you think about speaking life into the next generation, it's very important to remember that there's two types of ways that you can speak into someone. There are negative words and there are positive words. And if I were to ask you right now to think of something positive that someone has said to you in your life, I'm sure there are many things that could come to your mind, because whoever is listening to this, you are wonderful and unique, and there are many positive things that could be said about you. If I ask you to think of a negative experience or something negative someone said about you, though, I bet it would come to your mind much more quickly. I also assume that it would probably carry more weight. It might even bring up some emotions, some bad memories. And that is because negative words weigh 1,000 times more than positive words do, which is a sad tragedy. Negative words stay with us. They scar us. They hurt us. They bring up heavy emotions. And so they're easily remembered, whereas positive words, I feel like you have to give 10 times the amount of positive, which is probably not true. It's probably more like a 3-to-1 ratio or something. But you do have to give more positive reinforcement and more encouragement and support in uplifting ways compared to criticism that you give, especially when it comes to children, whether you're a teacher or a parent, whatever it may be. When you're speaking into the next generation, you need to be giving affirmations and support, especially because of your age. You have every single thing that a kid wants. You have a credit card, a job, you have money, you have a family. They have all these things that they're subconsciously dreaming of being one day. You have the height, literally, like you have everything that a young child wants. And so your words, whether you realize it or not, as an authority, carry more weight than even a peer's would. When you tell a kid that they're going to grow up and be an astronaut, somehow they believe they're going to work for NASA one day. Words have power. When you thought back to something positive or negative that someone had said a couple seconds ago when I was telling you to think back, that negative memory still rings true. Those scars still ring true. It's because sticks and stones will break your bones. That's true. But words will always hurt or restore you. Words have power to encourage, restore, or tear down. The Bible says words will give life or destroy you, but you get to choose. You do get to choose. The words you say are either going to build someone up or they're going to not give life. They're going to tear down. It's way easier to pull someone down rather than to push them up. So you have to work hard to think about your words, be encouraging, be supportive, be a light, speaking light and truth in a way that is loving into the next generation. Another thing to remember when you think about your words is that kids are massive repeaters, and anyone younger than you typically is more willing to repeat what you've said than a peer. So I'm a teacher of fifth graders. All the time I'll say, you know what, that is a great answer, student's name, but I respectfully have to disagree because 2 plus 2 actually doesn't equal 7. And it's funny that I say that because 10 minutes later I'll hear a random student in the classroom say, I respectfully have to disagree with so-and-so because, and it's because kids really are repeaters. They repeat what they hear. So if you are, and this is something whether you're speaking into the child or just around someone in the next generation, they're going to repeat what they hear. So if you're speaking words that tear people down, those kids are going to go repeat those words whether you're around or not to other kids or adults. If you're speaking words that give life, saying things like, I respectfully disagree, or you're doing great, awesome job, those are things I try to say constantly in my classroom. And I do hear my students all the time say, wow, you did a great job on that. And they'll kind of almost in a mimicking me kind of way. It makes me laugh when I think about it. But they will repeat what they hear, and modeling is huge. So speak more positive words than negative critiques because your negative words are going to carry more weight than you want them to. And also kids are big repeaters. So just remember, whatever you're modeling with your language is what the next generation that is listening to you is going to say. They're going to take on your maxims and your sayings and all these things. They're going to go out and they're going to model whatever it is you've exampled.
Okay, so what great stuff. And man, as a dad, to hear her just say that and just be reminded of how powerful our words are, so important. So here's my challenge to you as we land this thing today. I want you to identify one person, just one person this week. Who is it that you need to speak life into? Who is it that you need to remind them this week that they're great? There's greatness in them, and you can call it out. Your words are going to be 1,000 pounds to them this week when you speak life into them. You never know. They may remember this conversation decades from now. I think about things that were said to me when I was a young boy by some people who believed in me, who reminded me of things that were in me, that even called out greatness in me at that time. I would not be where I am today were it not for those life-giving words. And I also remember words that were shared with me, and we carry those with us, and they're part of the memory. We want to get rid of those and lay those down. If they're weighing you down today, you've got some words that were spoken over you that are weighing you down, I want to challenge you to lay those down. But I also want to challenge you to speak words of life into those around you. There are people who need to hear your voice. Your voice is the loudest voice. Your voice weighs the most in someone's life. And this week, I want to challenge you to speak greatness into them. Your words really do give life. They are going to be fruit. They're going to be sweet to their ears this week. So, if we're going to chase greatness, we got to think the right way. We got to remind ourselves of what greatness is all about. It's really not about us. It's about making other people great. It's about being a servant, being a person who serves, not just a self-serving person, but a serving person. But ultimately, one of the things that really is going to determine how great we're going to be is going to be the way we speak. And so this week, let's use our words in a positive way to speak life into others. One of the other things you can do to build life into others, I believe, is to share this podcast. And so I want to encourage you to do that. It would really help us. Also, if you'd leave us a review, I'd love for you to say something positive about what's going on. Use your words this week to give a review. It helps us out there to grow the channel. We're trying to add life and value to leaders everywhere. I want to challenge you this week. Make sure that you start like where you are. You identify like, here's where I want to be. And hopefully that is a place that is great. And so let's all be guilty this week of chasing greatness.